Ah yes, Super Mario World. Pretty much everyone and their mom has heard of that game at least once in their life. It's been re-released on almost every recent Nintendo system since the Wii, and it's widely regarded as one of the greatest games in the entirety of the Super Mario franchise. Yet, being real with you, I think it's actually unplayable. Have you seen that one stray pixel on the title screen? It ruins the experience. Now you might be wondering why I'm not following up Super Mario Bros. Deluxe with Super Mario Advance. Well, you see, if Nintendo can get away with remaking the classic Mario games out of order, then I have all rights to cover them in any order I feel like. However, yeah, Super Mario World. What is there to say that hasn't already been said before? The controls are tight and responsive, the level design is very memorable, and it gave us everyone's favorite tax fraud committing dinosaur. Personally speaking, I didn't grow up with the Super Nintendo, so I didn't get to experience the original release of Super Mario World till years later. Instead, I grew up with the Game Boy Advance, so my first experience with World came in the form of Super Mario Advance 2. These days, I don't really see Super Mario Advance 2 brought up much in discussions, and when it is, it's usually not held in the same regard as the original. However, I feel it still has a lot to offer, and plenty of its own merits that make it more than a serviceable way to experience a timeless classic. The first difference you'll notice appears when you first boot up the game. Like the other entries in the Mario Advance series, there's an intro cutscene. However, unlike the original Advance, this one actually adapts the plot from the instruction manual. It shows the gang landing on Dinosaur Land for their vacation, only for Mario and Luigi to go explore the island using their new capes. When they return, they notice that Peach has gone missing. It's simple but effective, and gives off similar vibes to the intro that would later be seen in New Super Mario Bros. 2. There's even an alternate variant of the intro that you can unlock after completing the game, this time ending with the plumbers and the princess enjoying their time in peace, which is a really cute reward. Here's an interesting oddity. If you press left and select within the same frame, then on the level select menu, while you're on Donut Plains 2 on the world map, and then warp to Yoshi's house, the player will be taken to a glitch version of the intro stage. The next thing you'll notice is that the multiplayer mode from the original has been completely removed. This is admittedly Advance 2's biggest downgrade, as it no longer offers the experience of you and a pal going through the game together. I'm surprised they didn't just go the route of locking it behind link cable support like they did with various titles from the classic NES series line, or even including it and having people take turns handing each other the system like they did with Super Mario Advance 4. In its place, however, our favorite Ghostbuster has received quite a handful of differences. First off, you can switch between him and Mario on the overworld. On top of that, he has also received a redone sprite sheet that's more reflective of his modern design. Of the four Super Mario World style Luigi sprites, this one is probably my favorite. However, I feel most are probably more fond of the All-Stars one, especially given its history in Newground animations. But more importantly, Luigi has gotten several gameplay related changes. Instead of playing just like his brother, Luigi is more like his Super Mario Bros. 2 incarnation, where he jumps higher and scuttles in the air, but suffers from worse traction. However, Advance 2's take also retains a few unique traits of its own, such as Luigi having a lower running speed, Fire Luigi's fireballs bouncing higher, and Yoshi no longer swallows enemies automatically. Instead, for a brief period of time, he has the ability to spit them out as an attack. With all of these changes added up, I feel Luigi is my preferred playstyle in that he offers a fresh way to experience each level. Besides how they handled Luigi, I would say the biggest change to the experience comes from how Dragon Coins have been implemented this time around. In the original, Dragon Coins were a collectible you could find in every standard stage, and collecting all 5 would get you an extra life. While they retain that same purpose in Advance 2, it also takes Dragon Coins a bit more seriously. The game now keeps track of if the player has collected all of them in a level or not. Level types that didn't have any prior, such as ghost houses, fortresses, and castles, excluding the final level, now have Dragon Coins scattered around them, and the player even receives a reward for collecting them all. After obtaining every single Dragon Coin, the player receives a cutscene, where all of the Dragon Coins you've collected up until that point fall from the sky. Yoshi then appears as he grabs a nearby Dragon Coin with his tongue, poops it out, and is revealed to have morphed into a Princess Peach coin. Now if you replay any level, you'll see Peach coins in their place, though the game doesn't keep track of them, so they'll reset each time you play through the stage. and you don't really get anything beyond extra lives for collecting them. Now, would I say this was worth it? No, not really. Like, don't get me wrong, seeing the sparkling dragon coin on the level select screen does please me. Not to mention, going for them casually can be a nice time. However, some levels just aren't that fun to go through with the collecting mindset. Take Tubular for example. I don't recommend doing it normally. You're better off just cheesing it with Blue Yoshi. Though then again, some levels just hand them to you on a silver platter if you get the wings as Yoshi. Advance 2 also features plenty of quality of life additions as well as many miscellaneous changes. When hit when in their fire or cape forms, the player is no longer reverted to their small forms, instead now reverting to their super forms like in the US release of Super Mario Bros. 3. I have always found this system more fair, so I'm glad it became the standard moving forward. The save system has also been updated to allow you to save at any point, unlike the original where you could only save after completing a ghost house, fortress, or castle. Alongside that, the game also now saves the amount of lives you have at any point. So now you'll never really ever see the game over screen, given how easy it is to get lives in this game. Also, if the player gets 10 consecutive lives in a row, flowers and text telling you how many you got will scroll past the screen. So that's neat. In the original, only the normal green Yoshi would hatch from eggs found in question blocks. However, in Advance 2, it now depends on which Yoshi has been found in Star World at that point, as well as the power-up you're using at that time. So getting blue Yoshi is way more common in this version. The level design for the most part is 1-to-1. However, there have been a few cases in which, to adjust their difficulty, additional objects were placed ranging from message blocks, pipes, and more. Levels such as the Cheese Bridge area have a lower obstacle count, and a timer has now been added to the top secret area, so now you can't stand there to the end of time. One of my favorite changes made was the addition of a menu. By pressing select, the player will be taken to a menu detailing their total playtime, score, what levels they have completed, who they completed it as, and if they got all the dragon coins or not. Unfortunately, it does not contain an in-game calendar, but these features are very useful nonetheless. After defeating Bowser, you can even warp to any level you like using it, which, while cool, I wish wasn't a post-game feature. Though on that note, you can now only replay the castle or fortress stages after Bowser is defeated. While you could hold L and R to do so in the original, Advance 2 completely removed that when it probably would have benefited from it more, with the inclusion of hidden collectibles in these stages. The Fall event, previously made available after the player cleared the special zone, is now locked until the player has cleared all 96 exits. And now, not only do Koopa Troopas, Bullet Bills, and Piranha Plants have their appearances changed, but also Goombas and Pokies. Lastly, you'll also receive a cutscene where it's shown that canonically, the various enemies got their masks from Luigi throwing them into the unknown. Guess Luigi wanted everyone in spirit for the incoming holidays during the fall. Speaking of that cutscene, the frames for the birds flying animation actually originates from unused sprites from the original Super Mario World, so it's pretty neat to see them finally see the light of day here. From a presentation standpoint, Super Mario Advance 2 is about on par with the original, given that it reuses most of its assets with slight tweaks here and there, due to the fact it was released quite early on in the system's life, almost 2 years before the release of the SP, which introduced a backlight screen. The palette used in Mario Advance 2, in contrast to the original, is far more washed out to compensate. This doesn't bug me much personally, though I totally understand why someone would prefer a more faithful conversion. Thankfully, the SP made it so later titles wouldn't have to worry about that. The only other major change is akin to other ports released on handhelds at the time. Super Mario Advance 2 does suffer from a degree of screen crunch. This is most noticeable when you view the tile screens side by side. Unlike its predecessor, Super Mario Bros. Deluxe, there is still more than enough room, however, to see what's up ahead for it to be perfectly playable with 1 or 2 minor exceptions. Although, for some, this aspect understandably keeps it from being the definitive version of the game in their eyes. Despite that, not every change to the presentation was negative. There's the aforementioned updated sprite sheet for Luigi, but there's also a handful of smaller changes. Peach's sprites were updated to better match her modern design, while Yoshi and Bowser had their palettes changed to better suit the promotional artwork. I still remember all the protests and displays that were destroyed once people realized Yoshi's orange arms were no more. Alongside that, voice acting has been added to the game, just like the original Advance. It's not as frequent this time around, but it's always lovely to hear Charles' wonderful take on Mario and Luigi. Oh yeah, the Koopalings will also shriek upon being dumped into lava pools. Always gotta appreciate hearing the agony of your victims. Life is full of many mysteries. Did Elvis fake his death? What is there after death? Is the world flat? Is there truly a Queen of England? And who took my Rice Krispie treat? But none of those rival the mystery of why Nintendo decided to replace Luigi with the green recolor of Mario in the multiplayer mode of Mario Bros. Classic. So one of the things advertised on the box of every Super Mario Advance game, as well as Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, is the inclusion of an updated version of the 1983 arcade classic, Mario Bros., which means all of these games were able to connect to each other and offer support for multiplayer via the link cable. I think it goes without saying that this is the definitive version of Mario Bros., and it's not even a contest. I mean, you do lose the tutorial cutscenes from the arcade version, but that's not much of a loss, especially when most versions of the game don't even bother to include it in the first place. From a presentation standpoint, the visuals have been updated to match the art style used in Super Mario Advance. This is most noticeable with Mario's sprite. Like in the SMB3 version of Mario Bros., Shell Creeper has been replaced by Spiny. The backgrounds are quite detailed and there is now a variety of them used across the various phases. There's also background music now during the standard gameplay, so you're no longer forced to listen to the endless void. From a gameplay standpoint, it controls much more responsively, with the biggest changes being that jumping onto floors has been made much easier. But more importantly, the player can change their direction in midair. This greatly improves the experience and keeps me way more engaged throughout the experience. In general, I'd say it's a bit easier than the original. There's an added POW block at the top of the screen, lives are more plentiful, and everything just feels more balanced as a result. Well, I suppose it's time to address the elephant in the room, the multiplayer.
Wait, were there any differences in the version featured in Superstar Saga or something?
Oh, yeah, I mean, sure? The option to select multiplayer is now found on the Mario Bros. Title screen instead of the main menu. Plus, the title music uses slightly different instrumentation based on the respective game's sound font. Pretty crazy stuff, to be honest. Hey wait, would you want to play Mario Bros. With me?
No.
So, I took a moment to calm down and breathe, deciding to take that opportunity to go outside and take out the trash. While doing so, I managed to find someone willing to play Mario Bros. With me.
Please, someone get me out of here! I can hardly breathe in here!
Fine, you can be player 2 if you want so badly. As stated before, Mario Bros. Offers support for 4-player multiplayer via the Game Boy Advance link cable. You can play as Mario, Green Mario, Yellow Mario, and even Blue Mario. Not to be confused with Blue Mario from Mario Tennis. Easily the most iconic group of characters to ever face the Mario universe. Multiplayer contains 2 modes. Classic mode, which is a regular game of Mario Bros., as well as Battle, where you and your friends fight to see who can get 5 wins first. While some of these changes are present in the Classic Mode experience, the Super Mario Bros. 2 influence is far more apparent in Battle Mode. First off, not only does Mario have the ability to pick up and throw items, but also other players, which can lead to really chaotic moments. The health system also works like SMB2. When damaged, you'll turn small, but if you get a growth heart, you'll turn big once more. Lastly, Mario can perform the super jump, which has its merits, but it's one I don't use as much. If there are only 2 players playing, a garbage can will appear at the bottom. If thrown or jumped into, the player will be stuck there for several seconds, putting them at a potential disadvantage if coins are on the screen. However, they will come out with an item that can potentially help them, such as the star, which works like it always does, or an egg, which can give you a coin, heart, and more. One level even features Bowser as a stage hazard, where he'll walk around and spit out flame.
I have to pee.
Quiet, you imbecile. All in all, I think this is the one version of Mario Bros. I can easily recommend to someone. It manages to keep the core experience intact while modernizing it in all the right areas. However, you're still better off playing Luigi Bros. You can't name a more iconic duo. Real quick, speaking of the year of Luigi, you can come across a recreation of Small Luigi's sprite from Advance 2 in a secret area to collect a star coin in New Super Luigi U. I just thought that was a pretty charming detail to point out. While I won't deny that it is flawed at points, I still feel Super Mario Advance 2 is an admirable version of the game that in many ways improves the original while still keeping the main experience that you remember intact. If you're interested in trying it out, there are various ways you can experience it. Original copies of the game are fairly common and can be played on either a Game Boy Advance or the GameCube if you have the Game Boy Player. It was on the Wii U Virtual Console until Nintendo decided that they didn't like money and got rid of everything on the eShop. This is the version I captured most of my footage on. However, don't worry, you're still in luck. Earlier this year, it was added alongside the other Mario Advance games to Nintendo Switch Online. So now you and 3 other people can play Mario Bros together with online multiplayer. Oh yeah, you also get Mario World with that? I think that's enough Mario World for today though. I'm gonna go watch this really cool nature documentary that people have been recommending to me.
Spend time with us.
Such majestic creatures.